Pivot tables, guys, are going to save you a stack of time, make you so much more productive, and give you insights into your data in literally seconds. So I thought the best thing I can do is actually show you how I use a pivot table in my business to make decisions at the end of each season. Now, as well as doing online training, I run a small food business, and at the end of every season we have to decide what's selling, what isn't selling, what's coming off the menu, what's easy to make in the kitchen, those sorts of things. So I run the food business as well as online training, and we've managed to kind of like put some science around the choices that we make now of the things that come off the menu by using Excel pivot tables, and this is how we do it. So what I thought I'd do, I'll show you briefly around the pivot table and how I use it to make those decisions, and then we'll delete the whole lot, or we'll start on a new sheet and we'll recreate it from scratch. So this is the pivot table on the screen, and this here is a thing called a slicer. And the slicer just gives you like a nice easy way of, actually I tell you what, let me just do something here. The slicer just gives you a nice easy way of tidying the screen up and filtering for things. As you can see, as I'm just clicking around here, it's showing me the results of the item that I've clicked on. If I click this little gizmo, it will allow me then to show multiple items. So I can click on all sorts of different things and away we go. And I'm just going to put everything on just for now. So what I do at the end of each season then, or before, 4 weeks before the end of each season, is actually export all of this sales data from my sales database, and I bring it over into this Excel spreadsheet. This is the actual spreadsheet that I use. Now, just in case you're one of our actual competitors getting really excited, thinking that you're going to see all of our sales information, please don't jump to that conclusion. This is all random data. So these numbers here have all been generated quite at random, and I'll show you how I've been able to do that in a moment or two. But what this pivot table allows me to do is to say, okay, well, let's have a look. Let's say this is 2016 and the total, completely fictitious, was $596,000. That's the total sales for the year, say. What it allows me to do is to take a good look at how that revenue has been obtained from the different categories. But not only that, at the end of each season, I can dig into each category and see what contribution each meal is actually making to the overall total revenue. And from that, of course, you can start saying, well, we sold 233 Singapore noodles, that's $1,700. It's not performing real well, that one, as opposed to say a sausages and onion gravy. We actually produce meals for all seniors, so the very traditional type of meals, which we did 1,018 of, completely fictitious, don't forget, and that gave us $9,000. So we're not going to take that meal off, but we might start thinking about, should we really keep these last 4 or 5 on? Now, sometimes what we find in our business is that you put a new meal on and you've got to promote it for 2 or 3 months before you actually start to see any real sales of it. So we normally leave things on for 2 seasons, and if they're not coming off the bottom 5 or 6 here, then we start thinking about retiring them. But at least we've got some data and some analysis that we can actually do. So that's how I actually use that's how I use a pivot table in Excel to analyze the data. So I can see the total revenue by category, the percentage of the total, and how many of those items were actually ordered in a particular period. Right, how do I do that? Well, let's go here first of all and just show you. This is, as I said, this is all fictitious data. The prices actually aren't, and the categories aren't, but definitely the sales amount most definitely are. And I'm just going to show you quickly how I generated those random numbers. So I'm going to go equals rand. No, I'm not. I'm going to go equals round, and then within a round I'm going to put a rand function, multiply that by 10, and I'll round it, the whole thing, down to no decimal points. And what that has done, the RAND just generates a random number, and because I've multiplied it by 10, I'm actually getting 7 and 1 and 2 and 6. You can experiment with this and see what it does for you. Now what happens here then is that I've used the round function as the outside of the rand function to make sure that I'm getting whole numbers rather than 7.256 or whatever. I'm actually rounding the result down that this rand function is giving me down to 0 decimal points. So that's how I got those numbers. Now what happens here then is if I just put in a number here, say a completely random number, you'll see that all those other numbers change, because every time you enter something into an Excel spreadsheet, that rand function kicks off again and generates a whole bunch of random numbers. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of having that sort of, kicking those numbers around all the time, I'm just simply going to, one second, sorry, it's actually gone down a bit too far, so I'm going to delete all those numbers from the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to copy all of that lot, Control and C or Command and C on a Mac. I've copied that lot, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste back values. So what that does, it replaces that function in there for me, and it gives me just a whole number based on what the function was doing for me in the first place. So that's how I've been able to generate those random numbers, and then we can start playing around with a new pivot table. Let's see how we go. So click in the data somewhere and go to Insert Pivot Table, and it will take a guess at what you want there. Now the good thing about this is there's no gaps in the data. There's actually 15,000 rows here, I think, so a good set of data to work with. There's no gaps at all, so Excel has made a good job of guessing what I want to actually create the pivot table on. And I also want to create it on a new worksheet, so click OK, and that's what happens. We get a sheet 5 here, and away we go, creating a pivot table. It doesn't give you much to begin with. It doesn't create that for you. It can actually do suggested pivot tables for you, but I'd suggest you get your head around this first before you start using that function or that feature. And then it's got filters, columns, rows, and values. So this is the thing here over here that drives how the data actually looks and feels in the actual pivot table. So think about this then. We actually want to start looking at the product category name. So we pop that on first. And what that magically does is it pops the category name down in the row here. We could have put that on the column, but we're going to get, it's not going to make a great deal of sense doing that. So I'm going to put it back in there. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to delete it, he says, remove field. And I'm going to show you that you can just drag that if you want to, instead of clicking on it. So then underneath the category, or within the category, I actually want the product name. And there we go. I'm just going to right click and collapse all of those things. So I've got the product names now within each category. So if I went into the small meals, you can see there that we've got all the small meals, all the names of the small meals that we sell underneath that category, which is a perfectly logical thing to do. Then if you go back into the sales analysis sheet, back into the data, you can see over here that we've got this extended revenue. So 9 sales of this meal at $10.90 gives you $98.10, and that extended revenue presents itself over here as a column, as a field that you can place in the row. So he says, I'm hovering over the wrong thing, so I'm going to click on that guy, and you can see there that that's popped that one in over there in the values. So now I can start to build up a bit of a picture of how that $596,629 of revenue has been made up. I'm just going to see if I can fix up these so that they look a bit more like, not bothered about the decimals, and we'll put, oh there we go, we'll put the currency symbol on there so they'll look like revenue. Okay, so far so good. So we can start to see then how each category is building up, how each category is actually working with other categories to give us the revenue that we want. Now let's just go one step further then, and then I'm going to put this extended revenue on to the values again. So it's appearing now as a second time, and I'm doing that so that I can right click it and go down to value field settings, and in the show value as tab here I can actually say that it's a percentage of the grand total. So click on that, click OK. And now you see you can say that 132,970 is 22.29% of 596,000. So it's given me, you know, it's starting to build up a bit of a picture of that data for me, and you can see how quickly it's been able to do that. And then I can of course go into each item and I can see how that looks, and I can start comparing things in there. And if I right click and say sort, I'm after the sort options here. Now I always struggle with sort, there it is. We'll go largest to smallest, and what has that done for me? It's done exactly what I don't want it to do. I actually want it to go largest to smallest. Yeah, okay, let's have a look there. Yeah, warts and all. Did I tell you this was going to be a warts and all presentation? I might have to come back to that one. You know what? I'm going to do it on the revenue. So let's go sort largest to smallest. And it didn't work. That's interesting. Sort largest to smallest. Did that one work? Yeah, there we go. So I actually clicked in the category name and I'm sorting by largest to smallest within the categories. So you can see there that right click and sorting over the actual column header didn't have the desired result. But you can see straight away that, you know, most of the revenue is coming from small meals, then petite meals, then large meals. And if you're one of our competitors and you've just tuned in, I'm not sure why you'd even be watching this, but please don't get too excited because this is all fictional data. Okay, and then finally, if I just want to start making it so that I can look at that data a little bit easier, I can just insert a slicer. So go up to insert slicer, and it wants to be based on the category name, and click OK, and there we have it. It's as easy as that. No subtotals and no all these crazy formula that we used to have to do all those years ago. And now if I say, okay, I just want to have a look at large meals. Sorry, let's just do that again. Large meals. I want to have a look at small meals, and I want to start working on the small meals. And I want to start thinking, now let's just go and do this sort again. I'm just going to be brave enough to have another go at that sort, largest to smallest. There you go. So I can then start saying, right, okay, well, the roast lamb, yeah, that's selling pretty well. We've done $11,000 in that. We might think about perhaps putting a few cents on that. Or we might say, well, tuna pasta bake isn't doing too good. I tell you what I haven't got on here is the amount that we're selling. So let's just see sum of order amount. So let's pop that one on. It's put it in there. It's actually done a wretched thing, and it's formatted it as a currency, so I don't want that. So let's just see if we can get rid of that. I'll tell you what, let's go pick up the format painter and just go junk. There we go. And if I wanted to, I could just tidy that up a little bit. Value field settings and say total sold, something like that. And oh, it's done that. It's put that formatting back on for me again. There we go. So total sold 26,700, total revenue, etc. Okay. So that's how you can start working with your data. And you can see that after a little bit of practice, it doesn't take that long to get some really meaningful interpretations of your data in a few steps. And it takes all of the guesswork out of it for me now to decide what we should take off the menu at the end of each season. And that's how I use pivot tables in Excel in just one tiny area of my business. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you soon.